I'll be sharing. Great rising. Okay, we're live. Okay, we're live on YouTube now. Anybody get a chance to rest yesterday? And if you did you rest well? Okay, beautiful people. Rise and shine, for your light has come. It's time to awaken to the truth. Let's wobble, Trina, and mother. Oh no, not yet. Leisha watched it. She my sister Leisha. I know we got a couple of Leishas in here, but my sister Leisha finally watched it. Girl, she was like me. She texted me when, by the time she got to episode 2, she was like, I ain't watching this crap. She said, this is pissing me off already. Matter of fact, no, not her. One of the other sisters did too. I forget her name. But she be up here. But she said she couldn't get through number 2. Dana also said they got to number 2. And they couldn't watch it anymore. I'm not sure if any of the other ladies went back and they watched it any further. But Leisha, she made it through. I said, Leisha, I said, look, don't take it in chunks. I said, that's why it took such a long time explaining about it, right? Because it's going to thoroughly piss you off, right? Belinda Brown, shalom. Denny, shalom. I said, if you need to, just stop. But she kept on watching it. You know, I told her, I said, once you get to episode 9 and 10, it's going to pull everything together for you, and you're going to begin to understand. Like, we clearly can see what's going on, but I'm talking about what they were experiencing mentally. Like, anytime they had something come out in the movie that they were experiencing mentally, you know, you got the music amp up and stuff, and it seemed like a scary movie, and it's like boom in your face, like scare you real quick. But it's all what they're picturing inside their mind. So, but like I said, if you can hold on till you get to 10, just say shalom, brother, shalom. I said, if you can make it to 10, get to 10. Now, my mom, she watched it. I don't know if she's here yet. Well, what happened was, she said, she debating. She said, I don't know. She watched the review by Benaya Israel. Of course, she watched the one I did that day. We talked about it. We told everybody about it. So she said, okay, I'm going to pull myself together mentally for this, you know. And so what happened was, peaceful greetings, Uncle Nathaniel. She was starting it to watch in her room. She set her TV and everything, but then she decided she was going to go into the living room. So she went into the living room, and when she cut it on, she didn't realize when she cut it on, it started at episode 10 for her. You know, and she went through it. She was like, oh, wait a minute. And she thought it was starting off because of some of what Benaya Israel was saying that was already happening. She was thinking that it started with like a preview of what was going to happen at the end. You know how some movies start, they show you a clip from the end, and at the very beginning, then it walked through everything. Then that same clip they showed you at the beginning, it begins to play out, and the rest of it, that's what she thought it was. And she watched it all the way through. I said, well, you must have needed to see 10 first, you know. So, I'm not sure yet. She said she was, even just after 10, she said, that's all I'm watching today. She was like, I know the end of the matter. You know, so, but she said she was going to go back and watch it through, but I'm not sure yet. I didn't ask her again, yeah. But yeah, the ending ties it all together. So some of the ladies that come back in here and they still haven't gone back to it. I know you getting right mad, you know, and rightfully so. That's like true history. But what they show in them don't even compare to what our people like experience really. Like although the series is it's a bit much. Imagine what was happening in real life, and that's just that ain't even the tip of the iceberg of what happened in real life. Like, what if they had added some of that stuff in there about them actually cutting our women's stomachs open, right, and taking the babies out? What if they had added the part in there about them actually taking our babies, using them as alligator bait to catch alligators, like just to stuff and to make clothing and stuff? What if they had shown that? Like, what happened in real life? This movie is a child's cartoon based on what happened to our people, like real time, real life. You know, although what they did show us, it's a good little, you know, from some of the mental things they experienced because of the racism and the horrific things that they've done to us, not just in America, but all over the world. But they show you America because this is the sector they trying to entertain, right? Shalom, Mom, shalom. Did you get a chance to go back and start them over? I was just telling how you started at 10. I was like, well, you probably needed to start at 10. But we were just chatting about that. Did you go back yet? I'm waiting for the answer. While she waiting to answer, I think I pulled up my Oh, but I didn't type it in. So let me type this in real quick. Okay, let me get this ready. No, okay. She said no, not yet. Okay, yeah. We was just chatting about that. Shayla was asking, had anybody followed up yet on watching, if they hadn't watched it. Yeah, I told a couple ladies they couldn't get past 2. So far as I know, Leisha, my sister Leisha, is the only one that's made it all the way through. Like I said, she was calling me and texting me the whole way through. Girl, like she was hot. So she started getting to 9 and 10. Now she getting all hype. Like, yeah. Like, our people waking up. We ain't taking this no more, right? But okay. All right, y'all. So happy Tuesday. Happy Tuesday. Oh, I put up the wrong one. I'm supposed to get the Shema. I pulled up the blessing. Shema. Let me change this to Shema. Okay, y'all. Kenneth, peace and blessings, peace and blessings. All right, beautiful people. So let's go ahead and get started with the Shema. Hear, therefore, O Israel, and observe to do it, that it may be well with you, and that you may increase mightily, as Yahuwah, the God of our fathers, has promised us, in the land that flows with milk and honey. Hear, O Israel, Yahuwah, our God, He is one God. And you shall love Yahuwah your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. And these words which I command you this day shall be in your heart. And you shall teach them diligently unto your children, and shall talk of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise up. And you shall bind them for a sign upon your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes. And you shall write them on the posts of your house and on your gates. And Yahuwah commanded us to do all these statutes, to fear Yahuwah our God for our good always, that He might preserve us alive as it is at this day. And it shall be our righteousness if we do all these commandments before Yahuwah our God, as He has commanded us. Remember, and you shall bind them for a sign upon your hand. Yahuwah's commands, He said, bind them as a sign upon your hand, right? Hand represent action, meaning carry out, do, be obedient to what I said, please. He said they should be as frontlets between your eyes. Not only that, but think on them, ponder on these, meditate on these, right? That you may make your way successful before you always. And you shall write them on the posts of your house and on your gates. Meaning you are to teach your household and guide your household in the ways of Yah, right? And all those who come into your kingdom, under your canopy, into your home, they should honor and respect Yahuwah as well, right? These are the rules of this house. You cannot obey, you got to go, right? So that's what Yahuwah means by that. All right, beautiful people. So that, the Shema, also you can hear it be called the Shema, but it's found in Deuteronomy chapter 6, and we started at 3. And we condensed the entire chapter, but it's always good to go read the entire chapter for yourself, so you know all the good things that are there that come out of obedience to Yahuwah's instructions, right? All right, y'all. Who you binge watched it? You okay? On the thing, say he binge watched the entire series yesterday. We'll chat about it. We'll wait for a few more people. We'll get some input on this. If y'all don't know what we're talking about, if you're just coming in, go back and watch the video that I did the other day. It's labeled Them, THEM. And at the beginning, we kind of talk about it. And I tell you why. It's not something that you just like. Some people like to do movies, they label it horror. And the only reason why they label it horror is because the horrific things that happen to, you know, black people, African American people, you know, during and it wasn't high slavery times, but they do show some clips, but it still wasn't like high slavery times, the portion that they were showing. It's like the very beginning, kind of, maybe after some of them began to be freed, but they just kind of enslaved them in another way, right? It's like the physical chains came off, but mental chains came on, right? So that I give a long preface, because it's really a shock to your system, right? Especially if you hadn't already really known the deeper details about what happened. It could do a number on you. But I took a long time explaining it, and I also recommended that you watch the review by Benaya Israel, right? He actually pulled it up and some clips for you to see, and he's explaining it to you and how it all ties together in episode 9 and 10. And that's the only ones he talked about, although he gave you a quick overview of some of the things that happened up to 9 and 10. He specifically did his video on 9 and 10, so I'm not sure if he's going to go through the other episodes, but I don't think he really needs to, just by the way he tied everything together. Yeah, doing the Jim Crow area. Thank you, Shayla. So, but if you will, go ahead and we'll chat about it. We'll keep bringing it up just to see, because it's some really good principles and things that's happening there that they brought out that we're seeing begin to happen now, or we can pinpoint things that's happened over the years, right? Okay. All right, y'all. So happy Tuesday. It is May the 11th, 2021, day 150 of year 3 of reading through the books of the law and the prophets, which has been improperly named as the Old Testament. Nothing about what Yahuwah said has ever been old. His words are always alive. They're, what do you call them? They're evergreen, right? They're always good. They're always full of life and flourishing, and it will fill you with life and make you flourishing if you take them inside of you and you begin to obey them, right? And it'll teach you how to walk a straight and narrow path and how to decipher truth from error, especially a lot of the error and leaven that has been added into the book that they condensed together and called the Holy Bible, right? Let's go ahead and read our first chapter for today, which is 2 Chronicles chapter 3, 1 all the way to 5, and then we're going to hop over and pick up where we left off at in Fossilized Customs on page 51. And I did mark out a couple things in there today that is 11. So 2 Chronicles chapter 3. So Solomon began to, hold on, before I get started, I'm going to go ahead and take a sip of water. I'm sorry. I already feel my voice cracking. Okay, Alicia, yeah, shalom. I saw you come in a little while ago. I just forgot to say something. Okay. So Solomon began to build the temple of Yahuwah in Jerusalem on Mount Moriah, where Yahuwah had appeared to David his father. The temple was built on the threshing floor of Araunah, the Jebusite, the site that David had selected. The construction began in mid-spring during the 4th year of Solomon's reign. These are the dimensions Solomon used for the foundation of the temple of Yahuwah, using the old standard of measurement. It was 90 feet long and 30 feet wide. The entry room at the front of the temple was 30 feet wide, running across the entire width of the temple and 30 feet high. He overlaid the inside with pure gold. He paneled the main room of the temple with cypress wood, overlaid it with fine gold, and decorated with carvings of palm trees and chains. He decorated the walls of the temple with beautiful jewels and with gold from the land of Parvaim. He overlaid the beams, thresholds, walls, and doors throughout the temple with gold, and he carved figures of cherubim on the walls. He made the most holy place 30 feet wide, corresponding to the width of the temple, and 30 feet deep. He overlaid its interior with 23 tons of fine gold. The gold nails that were used weighed 20 ounces each. He also overlaid the walls of the upper rooms with gold. He made 2 figures shaped like cherubim, overlaid them with gold, and placed them in the most holy place. The total wingspan of the 2 cherubim standing side by side was 30 feet. One wing of the first figure was 7.5 feet long, and it touched the temple wall. The other wing, also 7.5 feet long, touched one of the wings of the second figure. In the same way, the second figure had one wing, 7.5 feet long, that touched the opposite wall. The other wing, also had 7.5 feet long, touched the wingspan of the first figure. So the wingspan of the 2 cherubim side by side was 30 feet. They stood on their feet and faced out toward the main room of the temple. Across the entrance of the most holy place, he hung a curtain made of fine linen, decorated with blue, purple, and scarlet thread, and embroidered with figures of cherubim. For the front of the temple, he made 2 pillars that were 27 feet tall, each topped by a capital extending upward another 7.5 feet. He made a network of interwoven chains and used them to decorate the tops of the pillars. He also made 100 decorative pomegranates and attached them to the chains. Then he set up the 2 pillars at the entrance of the temple, one to the south of the entrance and the other to the north. He named the one on the south Jachin and the one on the north Boaz. All right, y'all, let's hop over to the next chapter, 2 Chronicles chapter 4. Solomon also made a bronze altar 30 feet long, 30 feet wide, and 15 feet high. Then he cast a great round basin, 15 feet across from rim to rim, called the sea. It was 7.5 feet deep and about 45 feet in circumference. It was encircled just below its rim by 2 rows of figures that resembled oxen. There were about 6 oxen per foot all the way around, and they were cast as part of the basin. The sea, or the sea, S-E-A, the sea was placed on a base of 12 bronze oxen, all facing outward. And if y'all didn't know, the Vatican or Rome also has a holy see, but they don't spell it. It's a play on words with them, right? They don't spell it S-E-A like the ocean sea. They spell it sea like I see you, S-E-E, and I thought that was weird. Okay. The sea was placed on a base of 12 bronze oxen, all facing outward. 3 faced north, 3 faced west, 3 faced south, and 3 faced east, and the sea rested on them. The walls of the sea were about 3 inches thick, and its rim flared out like a cup and resembled a water lily blossom. It could hold about 16,500 gallons of water. He also made 10 smaller basins for washing the utensils for the burnt offerings. He set 5 on the south side and 5 on the north, but the priests washed themselves in the sea. Then he cast 10 gold lampstands according to the specifications that had been given, and he put them in the temple. 5 were placed against the south wall, and 5 were placed against the north wall. He also built 10 tables and placed them in the temple, 5 along the south wall and 5 along the north wall. Then he molded 100 gold basins. He then built a courtyard for the priests and also the large outer courtyard. He made doors for the courtyard entrances and overlaid them with bronze. The great bronze basin called the Sea was placed near the southeast corner of the temple. Huram-Abi also made the necessary wash basins, shovels, and bowls. So at last, Huram-Abi completed everything King Solomon had assigned him to make for the temple of Yahuwah. The 2 pillars, the 2 bowl-shaped capitals on top of the pillars, the 2 networks of interwoven chains that decorated the capitals, the 400 pomegranates that hung from the chains on the capitals, 2 rows of pomegranates for each of the chain networks that decorated the capitals on top of the pillars, the water carts holding the basins, the sea and the 12 oxen under it, the ash buckets, the shovels, the meat hooks, and all the related articles. Huram-Abi made all these things of burnished bronze for the temple of Yahuwah, just as King Solomon had directed. The king had them cast in clay molds in the Jordan Valley between Sukkoth and Zarethan. Solomon used such great quantities of bronze that its weight could not be determined. Solomon also made all the furnishings for the temple of Yahuwah, the gold altar, the tables for the bread of the presence, the lampstands and their lamps of solid gold to burn in front of the most holy place as prescribed, the flower decorations, lamps and tongs, all of purest gold, the lamp snuffers, bowls, ladles, and incense burners, all of solid gold, the door for the entrances to the most holy place, and the main room of the temple overlaid with gold. Last chapter for the day, y'all, before we hop over to Fossilized Customs, 2 Chronicles chapter 5. So Solomon finished all his work on the temple of Yahuwah. Then he brought all the gifts his father David had dedicated, the silver, the gold, and the various articles, and he stored them in the treasuries of the temple of Yahuwah. Solomon then summoned to Jerusalem the elders of Israel and all the heads of the tribes, the leaders of the ancestral families of Israel. They were to bring the Ark of Yahuwah's covenant to the temple from its location in the city of David, also known as Zion. So all the men of Israel assembled before the king at the annual festival of shelters, which is held in early autumn. And we also know the name for festival of shelters is Sukkot, or festival of booths, or festival of tents, right? Also, was it shelters, booths, tents, festival of tabernacles. That's when we camp out for a week, right? And it's representing how when Yahuwah brought his people out of the real live slavery the first time at Egypt, and they camped in the wilderness around Yahuwah, right? Around his presence, right? He set everybody up. He said, I want Judah here, I want Hugh here, and he labeled everybody around them, right? And the Levites were in the innermost part, all around the most holy place where Yahuwah's presence resided, right? And they tabernacled with Daddy, right? We had I was about to say a big sleepover, but y'all get it, right? That's what the setup was. So it's a memorial feast, and we are to do it, and we're to talk about it, and we're to go through what happened during that time and just talk about it, right? It's talked about quite a few times throughout the scriptures, but also if in the, what book is it? It's in Ezra. Ezra talks about it, but there's another book where it gives more detail about it. But anyway, when they found out, because when they went through the different kings, when they had the wicked kings, they didn't keep to all the commands of Yah. They pretty much did away with all of them, and everybody did as thou wilt, right? But when they got the good kings and they began to uncover the scriptures again, they began to find out, wait a minute, we supposed to be keeping this. They began to let everybody, yo, we need to repent. We need to be keeping this, right? And it's at those times when they began to return to the commands of Yah, not being like legalistic, but Yah, this is a command you gave. Like, this is something you expect us to do. Like, if you're leaving us in charge of your home, like, we need to keep it according to your rules and regulations, so we're going to do this. He said, so this time I want all the family to come home. I want everybody to come, so, you know, we can chat. We can just go over what's been going on with everybody all year, right? Come, everybody come to my house, right? This time, keep this, right? Look, Nehemiah, thank you, Tiffany. Right, yes, thank you. It's at the end of Nehemiah. Look, it is Ezra, because Nehemiah they renamed it Nehemiah. Nehemiah is actually the book of Ezra, right? But they just chop it up, and the second half they chop it up and they put it in the Apocrypha, and it's called Second Esdras, right? It's First and Second Esdras, or depending on which version you get, they'll call it third and it's either First or Second Esdras in the Apocrypha. But if they add it back into the Bible, they put it behind Nehemiah, is Ezra, Nehemiah, then it's labeled as Third Ezra and Fourth Ezra. So it's First Ezra, Second Ezra, Third Ezra, and Fourth Ezra. But if we look at it pulled apart and separated, it's Ezra, Nehemiah, First Esdras, and Second Esdras. So, but yeah, it's all one book. But thank you, Tiffany. But you will find what I was talking about towards the end of Nehemiah. Okay, so with that being said, so all the men of Israel assembled before the king at the annual festival of shelters, which is held in early autumn. When all the elders of Israel arrived, the Levites picked up the ark. The priests and the Levites brought up the ark along with a special tent and all the sacred items that had been in it. There, before the ark, King Solomon and the entire community of Israel sacrificed so many sheep, goats, and cattle that no one could keep count. So remember, this is tabernacles, right? So everybody, we celebrating this. They weren't sacrificing them to as a sacrifice, but they were cooking food all week. Like they were eating, and it's just named wrong right here, right? They call it sacrificing here, but when you're there a whole week hanging out, you go to a campground, everybody needs to eat. But the way they label some of this stuff, like I said, it's so wrong. Now, there is a time that they sacrifice, right? But we talked about that a little bit yesterday. Not yesterday, but day before yesterday, when we was talking a little bit about the sacrifice. But once you begin to understand, you can kind of keep it all in context and not get sidetracked with the wrong translations or the wrong words that they put in here, right? So they were cooking food, right? Cooking it appropriately, and everybody needs to eat during this whole week. So that's why they sacrifice so many, everybody home, you know. Then the priests carried the ark of Yahuwah's covenant into the inner sanctuary of the temple, the most holy place, and placed it beneath the wings of the cherubim. The cherubim spread their wings over the ark, forming a canopy over the ark and its carrying poles. These poles were so long that their ends could be seen from the holy place, which is in front of the most holy place, but not from the outside. They are still there to this day. Nothing in the ark except the 2 stone tablets that Moses had placed in it at Mount Sinai, where Yahuwah made a covenant with the people of Israel they left in Egypt. I'm sorry. Let me read that again. Nothing was in the ark except the 2 stone tablets that Moses had placed in it at Sinai, where Yahuwah made a covenant with the people of Israel when they left Egypt. Then the priests left the holy place. All the priests who were present had purified themselves, whether or not they were on duty that day. And the Levites, who were musicians, Asaph, Heman, Jeduthun, and all their sons and brothers, were dressed in fine linen robes and stood at the east side of the altar, playing cymbals, lyres, and harps. They were joined by 120 priests who were playing trumpets. The trumpeters and singers performed together in unison to praise and give thanks to Yahuwah, accompanied by trumpets, cymbals, and other instruments. They raised their voices and praised Yahuwah with these words: He is good, his faithful love endures forever. For at that moment a thick cloud filled the temple of Yahuwah, that the priests could not continue their service. The priests could not continue their service because of the cloud, for the glorious presence of Yahuwah filled the temple of Yahuwah. That's the presence we're looking for, right? But that presence don't show up unless we are being obedient to Yahuwah's law, statutes, and his commands, right? And some people who don't even attempt to keep his law, statutes, and commands, they let people fool them into thinking, oh, this is done away with it. We got living under grace now. I'm like, y'all don't get it, dude. You just don't get it. I'm like, at least go test it. I know what you've been taught. If you don't want to get rid of it right away, okay. At least test it, right? Before you begin to mock it, because we can clearly see a stark difference in your life and in the life of those who begin to keep it, right? So it should make you want to think. It should make you want to test it, right? Like, even if you go test it in secret, you will be captivated by the presence of Yah that begins to permeate your life, right? Like he like shows up like a real friend, right? And some people, I don't know, they may have dreams and visions of him coming to sit and talk to them. They may see him. I don't know. I ain't never seen him, but I always hear him, you know, and I hear him inside of me, but sometimes I hear him with my ear, like y'all can hear me physically. That's just the way I've always been able to hear him, right? So I'm just saying, at least test it. At least test him. He put it out there. He said, come test me, right? Come test me. All that your teachers and great sages then taught you. Okay, come compare, right? Come tell you now. There's nobody that compares to me, but I let you choose if you want to test these waters, right? Come test my waters, right? My waters are living, right? Okay, so with that being said, y'all about to hop on over here to Fossilized Customs. But also, if you haven't noticed, and I know a couple people that had responded on one of my videos, they've been missing the notifications on YouTube. And here's probably why, right? Well, YouTube could be doing something, but if you haven't clicked back on my page, right, you'll realize I've updated the banner, and it says Awaken to Truth. Yah, your Torah is truth, right? Or your instructions is truth. I've changed that, but I've also lined up my channel name so everything can be uniform. But I still left my name in the title, so you will see Awaken to Truth. So if you see Awaken to Truth pop up, or Awaken to Truth is live, but it doesn't just say Awaken to Truth. Like I said, I left my name in it, so it says Awaken to Truth. It says Awaken to Truth dash Pamela, and I think I put another dash Murphy Tribe. Some people know me by my name. They'll search for me by my name. Some people may have only been paying attention to Murphy Tribe because before I changed the name, Murphy Tribe was first. Then it was Pamela Murphy. But for the sake of people trying to find me that may not recognize the Awaken to Truth is live, they may just see that, oh, who is that, you know, and haven't caught on to it yet. So I wanted to say it just in case. So if you see me, anytime we go live, I post something, it'll say Awaken to Truth, but it will have my name, Pamela, just my first name, but I still put my last name in there by just using the Murphy Tribe. So Awaken to Truth, Pamela, Murphy Tribe, right? So if anybody looking for me, they'll be able to find me that way. But like I said, I want to kind of keep everything uniform, and even the email is awakentotruthtoday@gmail.com. So that way, just in case you didn't know. But I know a couple people were having problems because they didn't realize that, and then they just saw Awaken to Truth and they didn't look at my name that came behind it. So just in case. All right, y'all. We stopped on page 51. So like I said, I crossed out one thing right here. We may not get over here where I crossed out this other little portion. But like I said, I'm gonna go through it. I'm crossing out 11 where it's still a little bit of mixology and stuff added in. That way we don't have to spend so much time going over it. But I think the last few days of us reading through it, every time we got to some of the 11 where things were still being mixed, he does a good job with bringing out a lot of the doctrines that have infiltrated the church, and they have just merged together, and people think it's a part of what we're supposed to be doing. He did a good job with that, but the whole blood sacrifice, the human blood sacrifice, he didn't do so good with that one, right? Because there's still, even if they didn't know any of the other stuff, still pushing the blood doctrine is too much. It's too much. And we can't have it. We can't have it, right? Because some people don't even know a lot of stuff. All they know is the blood sacrifice doctrine, or the human blood sacrifice doctrine. And that's the big one. And Yahuwah said, nope, absolutely not. And they think Yahuwah has offered a blood sacrifice for their sins. And he said this will never happen. If we don't know what Yahuwah has said himself, we don't realize it when we get to the 11. Like my father said, this was abominable. Why are we reading this? Who wrote this garbage, right? So that's what immediately should come up, because this goes against the rules of my daddy's house. Nope, that is not my daddy speaking. Absolutely not. And you'll notice they give him 2 lines in the New Testament, that's it. But through all the rest of it, everybody else talking, right? And that tells me right off, we need to hold all y'all against the fire of what my father has said supposed to happen. You not lining up, and you not lining up, and you not lining up. So ain't listen to nothing you saying, because you're not lining up with him. And anybody that comes in his name need to say the same thing he said, and you all are not, right? And so we got to call that out, right? Okay. So page 51. And the last portion we stopped at was at the end of this first paragraph, where it ends. Oh, how I love your Torah. I meditate on it all day long. Your commands make me wiser than my enemies. And that's found in Psalms 119:97. Oh, I'm sorry. No, we didn't. I was looking for the name of the section. I'm sorry. But it was, nevertheless, that's good to read. I'm sorry. We stopped at tithing. So skip down. I'm sorry. It's the 3rd paragraph. I realized it after I said it. I'm sorry. Skip down to tithing. That's where we need to pick up. Clean and undefiled piousness before Elohim and the Father is this. Remember, Elohim is the proper pronunciation of Elohim, right? Remember, there is no E in Hebrew. So when they say this, he's doing his best to restore the original words in Elohim, which means mighty one, right? He's doing his best to keep everything in its the proper way you pronounce it and everything, okay? Clean and undefiled piousness before the Elohim and Father is this: to visit orphans and widows in their affliction, and to keep oneself unstained from the world. John 1:27. No, I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry. That's not John. It says Jacob. This is James. James 1:27. There were no needy persons among them. From time to time, those who owned lands or houses sold them, brought the money from the sales, and put it at the apostles' feet, and it was distributed to anyone as he had need. Acts 4:34 and 35. Acts chapter 4, verses 34 and 35. Okay. Tithing is the area exploited by the predators, and in parentheses he has wolves, which 2 Peter chapter 2 calls false teachers. They are engaged in religion or tradition and teach it. He said they would establish a precedent of plundering the flock and introduce destructive heresies is lies, with cunning seduction. Many will follow their shameful ways and will bring the way of truth, or the Torah, into disrepute. In their greed, these teachers will exploit you with the stories they have made up. Clearly, that is the truth, and we can see it. We can see a lot of it all through the New Testament, y'all. Many will follow their shameful ways and will bring the way of true Torah into disrepute. In their greed, these teachers will exploit you with the stories they have made up. You must read the whole context. He even goes on to say, it would have been better for them not to have known the way of righteousness or the way of Torah than to have known it and then turn their backs on the Kodesh command that was passed on to them. Kodesh means set apart, right? You hear people say the Holy Spirit, but Yahuwah calls it my set apart spirit. Or you hear Hebrew speaking people say the Ruach HaKodesh. It simply means the set apart spirit. We set ourselves apart from all the world, right? Because we're different. We Yah's kids. We his boys and girls. His men and women, his sons and daughters. Of them, the proverb is true. Hold on, let me just go back. It would have been better for them not to have known the way of righteousness or Torah than to have known it and then turn their backs on the Kodesh or the set apart command that was passed on to them. Of them, the proverbs are true. A dog returns to its vomit, and a pig that is washed goes back to her wallowing in the mud. One of the stories they have made up is how we must tithe to spread the gospel and to provide a comfortable setting, a building in which to study and help others worship and come to salvation. This is programming. Tithe is mentioned at Leviticus 27 and 30, Leviticus chapter 27 and 30, Numbers chapter 18 verse 26, Deuteronomy chapter 12 verse 17, and Deuteronomy chapter 14 verse 22. Hey, now that's in what they call the Old Testament. They changed the 10 Commandments, but tithing is not legalistic to them at all. Like, has anybody ever thought about that? Like, there's always done away when you ain't got to worry about that, but we're going to cherry pick. We need to keep tithing because that's how we're going to keep padding our pockets. We need it for the building fund. Oh, it's pastor's appreciation. Oh, we got this coming up. We need this for this service. Oh, you got to give to this. We decided we want to bless these people. Like, everything, right? And then when you get whiff of their shenanigans, and you stop giving your money, now they want to put a curse. They try to use Deuteronomy 28 to put a curse on you. But now, not only are they cherry picking, now they're misappropriating scriptures and taking out of context. And those who are not familiar with it, they get taken by it. And now you're giving your whole paycheck, and your light's about to be cut off at your house. You know, your rent is due, and they about to come take your car. But oh, Father gonna bless me if I give it to the church. Look, what is this? I ain't gonna say it's the stupidest crap I ever heard. I'm telling you, every time I see an idol, I'm gonna tear it down. I'm gonna burn it to ashes. I'm gonna stomp on it. Look, they say, if it don't meet the need, then it must be a seed. No, this seed belongs to my landlord. Otherwise, we're gonna be on the streets, right? So you got people giving their money to the church house, to rogue pastors and people who Yahuwah has not set in place. They just seen that working in the church or in religion is very profitable, right? And they make their living off of people's ignorance, because that's what it is. If you're stuck in any of them, they're making their living off of your ignorance, right? They take it. Now you got a need. Your power being got cut off. You know what? What's the first thing you think about? Let's go to the doors of the church. We need to talk to the pastor. Not all of them. There are. We're not gonna lump everybody together, because as we were younger, we were kind of on the receiving end of this, and not all them pastors are bad, you know. And hopefully, if you're in a place like that and y'all still kind of moving in ignorance, hopefully the people's hearts are good to where, man, my brother, sister needs some help. What can we do? How can we help? If we can't do it, or if all the money you gave us we done put towards this big church building, can anybody help? Brother and sister, they need some help. This and this. You know, maybe people bring offerings, right? Like they did to Paul. They bought what they had, and they put it at the apostles' feet, and the apostles doled it out, and there wasn't a need among the people. So hopefully it's a thing like that, right, where you really live amongst good people in a good community of people, and we watch out for one another, right? And it's not like super overly religious, but just being decent human beings. I see my brother has a need, I can help, so I'm gonna help. But not saying you play on people and you take advantage of people, because that's a no-no, right? But what happens is, a lot of times when they have a need, they about to be put out, or they really falling upon hard times, but they've been faithful, listening to you and giving into your church and padding y'all pockets, doing what y'all need to do to carry out the work of the Lord, right? And that's not y'all, but you know what I'm saying. But when they come to you, oh, brother, sister, the city has this program. Have you applied for that? Like, and you get kind of indignant at first, like, wait, what? No, Pastor, what program is this? Well, I'm going to give you a list of programs that'll help you. Knowing if anybody ever fallen on hard times and applied for any of these programs, like the special to pay your power bill, your water bill, most of the time, they got a set period of time where you go apply for this. And people who really need it, they keep track of this and they're applying for it. So them funds is ate up just as soon as they get them, right? So by the time your pastor telling you go down here to call this number, sister, here's the 1-800 number, right? They about to go out to eat dinner. They about to go out to eat. Take this, get them a call. The office opens tomorrow at 9 a.m. Go ahead and get them a call. They might have a little bit of a waiting list, and you sitting there like, and you thinking, what's going through your head is all this money I done gave to this church. Y'all can't help me. It's like, and it starts this vicious cycle, and that's why you'll see a lot of times, and I ain't gonna say this everywhere, because it just depends on who's there, right? That's why a lot of times you don't see a lot of men coming to the church, right? Men is like, I ain't going for this foolishness, right? But a lot of times they packed out with women, and that's saying it's hopefully, listen, it don't matter. If you go somewhere, unless it's set aside specifically for women or set aside specifically for men, here's how you can tell. It's something I learned a long time ago where Yahuwah showed me balance, right? He said, unless it's set aside specifically for women, or this is a women's thing, or this is a man's thing, right? We're not saying you can't come, but we're here. Everything we're talking about is catering to women. Everything we're talking about here is catering to men, right? If you go somewhere where it's supposed to be a place of instruction for all people, let me tell you how you can tell if things are off. If it's one-sided, if you got more women than men, the women's husbands ain't coming. Something is wrong that you can't see. If you got more men showing up, and it seems like the women that's there, they sitting in the back like, oh. If their husband turn around, something is wrong. You need to pay attention to your surroundings. Something is off, right? Something about the teaching is off. Something about the teaching that's coming from the people that's teaching us in charge is off, right? You can quickly tell. You can just walk into any place and just do a quick overview, right? Just make sure they ain't having a women's meeting, but if it's like a regular service where all should be present, there should be an equal amount, even with children, right? If it's off, if it's unbalanced, something about the teaching that's coming forth is unbalanced. Either the men have came and they picked up shenanigans. This dude is a charlatan. Wife, let's go, right? If he was smart, he would pull his wife from there. Some men can get taken as well, but a lot of women, they don't really have sway over their husbands. Like, well, I ain't going with you. You keep on going if you want to. And if she finds that, and I'm gonna give y'all a good example, right? If she finds that, or even if it was good and something begins to happen, Yahuwah should get your attention. Okay, it's time to go. Now I want to share something. There was a time when we was going, my husband and I, when we were still actually going to church, and I dropped my little card. And it was good, couples are there. It was good and balanced, right? But after being there for a couple years, we grew like a little bit, and then it thinned back out. It grew a little bit, then it thinned back out. It grew a little bit, and it thinned back out. And I kind of keep watch on things like that, right? Because as I was growing up, I was always used to hearing the voice of Yah, right? So I wasn't the type of person, although I would give my all, I would serve in the way I can, but I wasn't just the one where I'm doing it in church on Sunday or doing it in church on Wednesday, and during the week I'm doing whatever. No, I had a relationship with y'all before I met y'all, before I found y'all were here, right? But what happened this particular time, towards the end of our time being there, and we were active in the place, right? And what began to happen, the pastor began to travel more and just do different things, and he brought in different people. But I began to notice a shift in the atmosphere, right? And I couldn't quite put my finger on it, but I was like, something has changed here. I said, even the teaching or the preaching that's coming from the pulpit, it's changed. I can't quite put my hand on it. I said, but something is wrong. And I was talking to my husband, and he said, well, babe, no, I don't, you know. And I said something because he was serving, you know, in the ministry, you know. So I'm like, okay, all right, husband, but I just, you know, we got home and talked about it. I was like, I don't quite know what it is. I said, but it's something, I can't really tell what it is. He was like, babe, I don't feel like nothing. I was like, well, okay. But it kept bothering me. The more we went, the worse it got. The stronger the feeling got. And I began to notice different couples began to pull themselves away. And I'm like, they go on vacation? Did they move or something? And it's just different things. We talked to some of them, but some of them I just began to notice. It's like, you know. But what happened was, my husband, and it got really strong until I had a dream. Yahuwah gave me a dream about what was happening behind the scenes. Now, mind you, nobody was telling me what was going on. Yahuwah simply gave me a dream, right? And he told me to tell the dream to the pastor of the church. I'm like, oh, whoa, I'm overstepping my bounds. So I can't go tell, you know, that. So what I did, because I clearly knew it was y'all, so I wrote it out, put it in a letter, and I'm just like, I love these people. I said, I cannot say these words. I cannot, you know. I was like, because who was little old me? Because I don't really know what's going on. All I know is what you just told me. Now, I trust you. If you say this is going on, then you got to fix it. But you want me to take it there? I'm like, oh, how about, can I just write it in a letter? I wrote it in a letter. Because I just like, how, like, I'm a woman, you a man, your wife, you didn't say go to his wife, you said take it direct. I was like, Father, I'm proud military. That seemed like this kind of overstepping bounds for me. I'm gonna be obedient. I was like, but I'm gonna do it in a way, write this out. I'm gonna just write the dream how I had it. I was like, and if this is how I say, then they're gonna know it when I get it. So I did all that. So I gave that, you know, that was that. But the whole point of saying this was about how even when you're in a place and it begins to get off balance, if you have a relationship with Yah and you're in constant communication with him, he'll alert you about things, and he'll tell you when it's time to go. Okay, you've gotten all that you need to get from here. It's time to move on. Sometimes people like to go to churches or whatever until they come into the truth. They go to a church for all their life, you know. And this, we hear because our family went here. We hear like, no, Yahuwah likes to grow. You have different teachers throughout life, right? Excuse me. Just like you progress through grades, different teachers can teach you, and they can accelerate your growth, right, as you grow, right? There are certain teachers that you need on the elementary level, and there are certain teachers that you need as you grow and expand your thinking. Now we need to do a little bit of algebra. We need to get you thinking critically, and that's what doing algebra doing. Although most people never use algebra a day in their life unless they get into the construction field, they become engineers and stuff. But even then, when you choose to take up that specific niche or an industry, you got to go through school again. So now you're doing like specialized training, right? So what happened, I'm going to make this real quick. What happened was, I was like, babe, I say, I feel this I don't really know. I ain't saying we need to go. I said, but something, I'm thinking, Yahuwah is telling us, like, we need to go. He said, well, he ain't told me that. I'm like, well, okay. And when he said that, I'm like, okay, Father, so maybe it's me. Maybe I'm tripping. Maybe I'm getting a rebellion. Maybe a message coming from the pulpit that I don't want to hear. So let me check myself. And that's what I began to do. I'm like, okay, am I in rebellion? I was like, what am I doing with my life? And I'm just like, Father, if I'm doing something, let me repent, because maybe my husband said he didn't see it, but okay, so maybe I don't like the message. So let me just pay more attention and listen so I can take it and begin to apply it and wash out all the unseen filth that's inside of me, right? And so what happened was my husband's sister, and at that point I didn't say anything else to my husband, because he said, well, y'all ain't told me, so we're gonna stay. I said, okay. And so from that point I didn't say anything else to my husband. I just prayed. I said, Father, I said, okay. I said, but if this is you and it's not just me with some inward rebellion on the inside of me, I said, then you need to open the eyes of my husband. And what happens? His sister calls. She had an issue. I think she had hurt her back and she needed some help. So he went to go, he flew to Texas. His sister is in Texas and she needed some help. So he went there, and he was going for a week. And it just came up like a couple days after this, the prayer and everything. And he said, okay. I was like, yeah, that's fine, babe. Yeah, go help your sister. But I heard y'all, he said, while he's going, I want you to fast the whole time he's gone. I said, okay, okay. Can't let me wrong with fasting. I fasted the entire time my husband was gone. He came back on a Saturday night, a week later. Of course, we in church bright and early Sunday morning. We get into church, and when we were sitting there, I noticed my husband, he just kind of, because I can tell when my husband is agitated, right? And he got this thing about himself, and I'm like, uh-oh, what done happened? I'm paying attention to his body language. I'm like, okay, what happened? And I started thinking about the morning's day. I was like, did I do something? Did I? I'm like, babe, you okay? He said, yeah, but I could clearly tell he was bothered about something, right? Let me tell y'all how good y'all is. So service went on, and then it was over. And as we was leaving, as we was driving out the parking lot of the church, and we got down to the light, he said, he put his hand on my lap. He said, babe. Look, he said, babe. He just looked. He was quiet. He said, it's time for us to find another church. I'm like, really? He said, yeah. He said, something's not right. He said, I feel it strong. He said, but when I was sitting, he said, I just couldn't get comfortable at all while we were sitting there. He said, there's something. He said, I don't even know how to explain it. He said, but all I know is we got to go. And I'm like, look, on the inside, I'm like, yes. Father, I wasn't tripping. There wasn't no hidden rebellion inside of me. This time I was really hearing from you, right? So look, I said all that to say, I probably, let me get another card. Hold on. Get another card so I can keep my spot up here. That's what happened when we learn to hear Yah ourselves, right? And when you get into places and you have teachers that'll cherry pick the scriptures and it'll try to pull things out and misappropriate them for their own selfish purposes. It's like, no, this is done away with, but we're going to keep this part because this keep money flowing in here. Yahuwah will help you begin to uncover those things, right? And he will keep you, right? He'll keep your pockets from being emptied by charlatans, and he'll move you out of places before things go down that could destroy you or destroy your family. And as I begin to grow more, I can see all through my life how Yahuwah has done that for me and my family. Whether if I was still living in my mother, my father's house, I could still see the workings of Yah moving us from place to place. And I always know why, because when we get out of place for a period of time and we go back, we see what happened. Like, oh my gosh, what happened over there? Or just in the nick of time, or somebody who was at a place come back and tell us, hey, did y'all know this happened? What happened? Like all of this stuff. I'm like, Father, you are so faithful to us, right? And even And even if you are still steeped in a bunch of religion, if you still are a part of a church, when you have a separate relationship with Yahuwah, aside from just the Sunday and Wednesday, when you're away from everybody else, and in your private life, you are still seeking after him and growing, he keeps you from all these things until he brings you to a point where he can uncover some things to you and show you why he moved you, right? Because all the time he don't need to give you all the details. He said, I just need you to go, right? He'll give the command, you just do it. And a lot of times he explains it down the line, right? And so I have never found that to be more true since we've turned back to keeping Yahuwah's law, statutes, and commands, right? And there's nothing back here that cannot be kept. They scare people with this. Oh, that's done. We can't do that. Because what they do, they start throwing up these sacrifices. That's the only thing that they can bring up. The sacrifices in the temple. But Yahuwah specifically talk about the sacrifices in the temple. He said, I'm getting rid of all of it because y'all not getting this point, right? He said, you don't need any of this stuff. He said, when I brought your ancestors out of Egypt, did I tell them? He said, these are the commands I gave them. He said, follow these. What was in there? There was nothing about sacrifices or building of the temple, right? He said, this is how you live. You can live forever. You can live forever good. He said, you honor me, you honor your neighbor, right? There were 10 commands. And all the other rules and regulations that he gave once they got into the wilderness, these were community rules that go into deeper details on how to live and how to handle grievances against one another. And we don't see that because we never read it, so we don't know what's there. And we take the word of charlatans who were misappropriating things and taking things out of context. They clearly don't know it themselves. They haven't read it themselves, and if they have read it, they're preaching and teaching you out of a filthy, unclean motive to take you for everything that they can take you for, right? It's horrible. So I said all that to give you an example of how people are plundered when they don't know Yahuwah. And I go back up here and I read this again. And we almost done. We're going to read the end of this and we're going to stop at an elders meeting. It says, tithing is the area exploited by the predators or wolves, which 2 Peter chapter 2 calls false teachers. They are engaged in religion, tradition, and teaching. He said they would establish a precedent of plundering the flock and introduce destructive heresies and lies with cunning seduction. Many will follow their shameful ways and will bring the way of truth or Torah into disrepute. In their greed, these teachers will exploit you with the stories they have made up. You must read the whole context. He even goes on to say, it would have been better for them not to have known the way of righteousness or Torah than to have known it and then to turn their backs on the set-apart command that was passed on to them. Of them, the proverbs are true. A dog returns to its vomit, and a pig that is washed goes back to her wallowing in the mud. One of the stories they have made up is how we must tithe to spread the gospel and to provide a comfortable setting or a building in which to study and to help others worship and come to salvation. This is programming. Tithe is mentioned at Leviticus 27 and 30, Numbers 18:26, Deuteronomy 12:17, and Deuteronomy 14 and 22. Hey now, that's what's in what they call the Old Testament. They have changed the 10 Commandments, but tithing is not legalistic to them at all. Altogether, tithing is referred to 16 times in Scripture and is the ma'aser, M-A'-A-S-E-R, or a tenth of the increase, used for 3 purposes. 1, it consists of food. Whenever Yahuwah talks about tithing, or the people talk about tithing, it always referred to food. Now I know the teaching they get into today, well, oh no, we can't do that because we ain't got the flocks and herds and all this and all that. Now it's been converted to money. Okay, well, if that's the case, why did Yahuwah also talk about money, like right along when he talked about the tithe, right? So y'all got this chopped and screwed. Let me read it. It consists of food, as you will quickly discover. Malachi 1 and 7 and 3:10 proves this. preachers will select their own parts of the text in order to make the listener believe that the money is to be collected and put at the apostles' feet to support them in their God's work. Yahuwah's message is repent, not pay. Repent, not pay. Repent, not pay. The tithe supported or fed the Levites, poor, fatherless, foreigners, and widows. Paul at 1 Corinthians 1-4 and 16:1 is also talking about food to be taken back to Jerusalem to those in need. So we still can tithe. If you have a garden or you don't have a garden, you should start. It's just good practice just to start a garden with different things going on and food shortages. There may be food shortages in some places, but other places they don't. You should start a garden, right? You really should get into the habit of doing it, right? Hold on. Paul at 1 Corinthians 1-4 and 16:1 is also talking about food to be taken back to Jerusalem to those in need. There was a famine, and gold coins cannot be eaten. If a teacher of Torah or teacher of Yahuwah's instructions and law is traveling, and one of us has him stay at our home for a time, he is able to eat from our table. You must not muzzle the ox while it is turning the grindstone, but let it eat the fruits of what it is grinding for sustenance. The ox doesn't cart off a percentage. The Levites were not able to own land, but performed the ceremonial law requirements we just discussed. They had to eat, as well as their families. If a preacher tells you he is entitled to 10% of your income and everyone else's income, numbering hundreds or even thousands of people, remind him that he is not a Levite. A Levite had to be a descendant of Lewi, right? Or some people say Louis. He actually doesn't have the V in here, but it's Lewi, or the descendants of Levi, the Levites. You know, and the Bible says Levi. So a Levite had to be a descendant of Levi, a strict bloodline of priests. Also, the ceremonial law and the need to support those Levites who implemented it is no more. These predators are not the poor. These predators are not the poor through some physical defect. They are not children without a father to support them. They are not foreigners fleeing from a famine or war, or widows in their old age with no husband. They must work. Paul did, even though he traveled about. And that is where we are going to end today, beautiful people. So I hope y'all enjoyed the reading today. We read, we got through one page. We started on page 51, but we only made it page 52, and it's literally like, if you put them together, it's really like one whole page. Probably because I did my extra stories to add it in, but I hope they was able to help. Some of my personal experiences, hope it help you understand it, because a lot of times we'll read, excuse me, and if we don't have personal experiences, or if we're not able to kind of bring our personal experiences up to see how this, I see how this principle works. You know, sometimes it's just like we'll read. It's like, I got nothing out of that, right? You know, so that's why I like to add stories, at least the stories where I clearly know where Yahuwah has helped me. He's pointed me back to something like, look, this is what I was talking about here. Remember this? Boom, boom, boom. I was like, oh, snap. I didn't even see that principle working behind the scenes. Thank you, Father. Yeah. I'd be so excited, y'all. Okay. So, y'all, we read 2 Chronicles 3, 4, and 5, and then we read Fossilized Customs, pages 51 to 52. It is Tuesday, May the 11th, 2021, day 150 of year 3 of reading through the books of the law and prophets, and of the 3-year consecutive day count, day 819, that is without the Sabbath days or the feast days, Sabbath days added into the count. And when you hear me say year 3, for those people that are new, we read this over every year, right? So this is our 3rd time together reading it through together. Like I was doing it before we started doing it together. But I figured, you know what? People might need a study buddy, you know, so let's do this, right? People might need a study buddy. Because sometimes I know a couple people that say, I just can't sit and read the Bible like that. I said, you ain't got to sit it. Just take 15 minutes. So now they got it where you can listen to it, play in your ear. You got different voices, different versions. Take your pick, you know. I know some people's like, I can't even listen to it unless you. I'm like, well, look, first of all, don't get too connected to me. I said, because I'm human, my G. I might make a mistake. Not that I'm looking to make mistakes, but clearly, if y'all been here with me for these last 3 years or even the last year, y'all see that I made some mistakes. But the thing about me, once I realize it or somebody pointed out, I'm like, oh, guys, I need to make a correction. I screwed something up, you know, because I ain't trying to lead nobody astray. We all learning together. I don't know. I clearly don't know it all. I'm like fresh coming out the womb, you know. So, but there are people who know way more than I do, and I know that, and I give props where props is due, right? And I will send y'all to places where people clearly know more than me and have done more research and study, which is why I made them playlists on my YouTube page. So if you're just trying to get your footing down in the truth and really understand the truth of Yahuwah's word and just realizing, oh snap, we the people of the book. What? All them resources there. I made a playlist and I separated them. It's education, this one, education here, whatever you're looking for. When I find stuff, I'll put it there. So everybody that I think has done a good job in explaining and using graphics and pull stuff up where they just cut right to it, it's right there. Now, let me say this. I will say this. Like I said, everybody's at a different point, and some people, they still holding on to the blood sacrifice. It's like it's almost like the last thing to go, because it's like, well, this is all we, and they don't realize that Yahuwah said, I don't require blood sacrifice. But it sounds like blasphemy. I know, I grew up in the church. That sounds like blasphemy to Christian ears, right? And when they first hit, oh, we're clicking off, you ain't leading me astray. That's a blasphemer. Stay away from there. Don't listen to her. Like, I'm like, just give me a chance. let me explain what I'm saying. And these are not my words. I'm trying to point out to you what everybody's been telling you not to go look at, right? You know, so it's like, look, test it. You ain't got to believe me, but on your own time, take it and test it yourself. Test it. Weigh what you've learned from your great teachers and sages. And not everything is that. Don't get me wrong. I say it all the time. Don't throw out the baby with the bathwater. Not everybody bad. There's a lot of people in ignorance, but some principles they got right. They teach it good. Good principles to live by, right? Eat the meat, spit out the bones, right? Eat the meat, spit out the bones. I tell that with anybody. You can learn from anybody. You can learn from a child. I'm learning from my children daily. Like, Yahuwah corrects me through my children almost on a daily basis. They'll say something like, I've given them the words of Yah. And I taught them, if they find me getting off of Mom, well, we ain't supposed. I was like, oh, you right. Thank you. Like, I ain't too big-headed where I can't learn from a child. Like, because some people like, you a child, stay in a child's place. Don't you? I'm like, no, that ain't me. Because first of all, let me just give glory and honor what glory and honor is due. First of all, Yah, you thought of us enough to give us good gifts. He said, children are a gift, and you have given us a multitude of them. So clearly, you've blessed us in their gifts. All right, and they're people too. They have their own personalities. But you have to train them in ways of righteousness. But as you put in, like, you get out what you put in, people. Right? Sometimes you may not get a return on your investment right off. It just depends. It just depends on that path that Yahuwah sends them through in life. But if you put in truth, you get out truth, right? Just like your bank account. You ain't going to pull out what you ain't put in there. You know, and if you want to apply for a loan for somewhere, you using somebody else's money, you ain't getting nothing out of there. You get out what you put in, right? And hopefully what you putting your money into it'll return a good investment, right? So Yahuwah has given us gifts that will also give us an excellent return on our investment, right? Imagine teaching your children truth from the time they're little people, they're little human beings, right? And as they grow in truth, and they get stronger and stronger. They become, it's like as they get older, they exceed the wisdom of their teachers, right? Because now they have the wisdom of generations past, like generations past in the current generation. But then they begin to develop a wisdom because they are the next generation. Now as they get older and they become stronger, and we begin to decrease. Not that we ever stop learning, but they're out there in the midst of everything, the hustle and bustle, and they're learning all these new things. And now our students can come back and teach us, right? You know, so we learn from one another. We put into them as they're younger, and as they grow, and as they get older, and we get older, they come back and they come back and share all good things with their teachers, right? You know, and it's just good all the way around. It's good all the way around. So bless y'all for children, but bless y'all even more if you're teaching your children truth, right? And that they walk in truth. My heart does well to know that my sons and my daughters are walking in the truth, right? Of Yah's truth. What is truth? Oh, Yah, your words are truth. Your instruction is truth. Your law is truth. Your Torah is truth, right? Words of life. So that being said, beautiful people, let's go ahead and do the blessing for today, which is found in Numbers chapter 6, verses 22 through 27. Remember, the first 21 verses is the Nazarite vow. Man or woman can take the Nazarite vow. And Yahuwah spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto Aaron and unto his son, saying, On this wise ye shall bless the children of Israel, saying unto them, May Yahuwah bless us and keep us. May Yahuwah make his face to shine upon us and be gracious unto us. May Yahuwah lift up his countenance upon us and give us peace. And they shall put my name on the children of Israel, and I will bless them. He said, nobody else's name. For my house. As for my house, you bless my children with my name, right? You bless my children in my name, and now I'm going to come and bless them, right? Nobody else's name. We don't do our prayers in anybody else's name. I don't care what anybody else taught. You don't do it in 3 names, right? Don't. That's not what Yahuwah said. And if we're familiar with his words, you hear him constantly talking about his people doing every single thing that they do according to righteousness and truth, and walking in the ways of life. He said, do it in my name, right? I give you my authority. Do it in my name alone. Nobody else's. Nobody else's. Nobody else's. And you don't do anything that you do for Yah in JC's name. Do we ever do anything in the name of the prophets? Do we ever do anything? And Father, these prayers I ask in the name of Jeremiah. And these prayers I ask in the name of Elijah. And these prayers I ask in the name of Zechariah. And these prayers I ask in the name of Abraham. And these prayers I ask in the name of Moses. No, we don't do that. Yahuwah said, in my name alone. Y'all get it? See, because when we're inundated with that, you do it in JC name, and then the Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost. What? What? Wait, where we at? Y'all belong to my daddy. Y'all can't be our bloodline. And it sounds, when Yahuwah begins to teach you, it becomes laughable. Not that we want to laugh in your face or dishonor you in any way, but it's an immediate, it's like, what? What are you doing? Like, you know, what, who did you just ask to fulfill your prayer? Do you not belong to our daddy? So why you go asking Mr. John cross the street for something only our daddy can give us? Like, if people don't see it that way, they have all these hit and miss prayers, right? All these hit and miss prayers, and they don't know if they're coming, if they're going. I know. I came out of there. So I can tell you. I can talk about it, right? Anyway, that's it for today, y'all. We got to get going. I love y'all. And I see y'all back here tomorrow morning, bright and early, 7:15 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Guys, we about to start another moon cycle, meaning we about to enter in a new month according to how Yahuwah has said it, right? So we're looking for, we're starting to watch for the new moon tonight. And if you have been paying attention, if it's not cloudy, if it hasn't been cloudy where you're at, like it's cloudy today. So I'm going to still be watching. Hopefully it clears up, and hopefully we'll actually be able to see it. But if it's too cloudy and we can't see it, of course, I gave the links and stuff. I'll also post the links today, since we're looking for it. So if we can't see it, we kind of check around the world, because everybody calls it out. And I'll bring up another point. A lot of people, like, say this last moon cycle, the Sabbath fell on a Monday, right? Remember the Sabbath? Whatever day the new moon is spotted on, it's like the line leader of the Sabbath for that moon cycle. It all lines up. And like I said, I realized that, like, on accident, simply by keeping track of, like, over the last few years, simply by keeping track in my planners. And I always get, like, the same kind of planner. And if y'all gotta go to work, go to work. So like this, I just show it again. And I keep track of the days as I watch. Okay, new moon is here. Boom, boom, boom. Now, I highlight the box. But as the new moon comes, then we begin our count, right? The new moon is like the line leader. Then you begin to count 7 days. Boom. And then you have the Sabbath. But I didn't realize that the first few years, I just mark it and keep going. Until one day I was going through... What is this red truck that keeps circling through here? Just pull right. I'm about to call my husband down here. He just pulled right in front of my house and staring right here in the window. Elijah, yes, ma'am. Come here. This guy, see what he wants. My oldest son right here. Check.
Where's 4301 at?
Oh, next door, Miss Lynn. That's what we looking for.
To the right?
Yeah, right here on the corner.
Hey, bro. 4301 right there. Yes. Yeah.
With the suspect through here. Got Morning Glory upstairs. Those who know me know who Morning Glory is. Because if I had to pull her out in the morning, you're going to wake up in glory. Okay, but my oldest son was right here. Hey, baby. Okay, so back to what I was saying. Look. Okay, so what I realized over the years, over the last few years, I went back through the months of the data, and I realized every time we had a new moon, that as we did the count, and I would just mark it, I'll say mindlessly mark, not mindlessly, but just marking it, but not paying attention to my data till late last year. Well, I ain't gonna say late last. Okay. Well, here it's crazy how it happened. Well, yeah, late last year when I actually started going through it, I began to notice the pattern. But Yahuwah had already been telling me it's here, here, here. But I'm like, well, okay, well, if you say it, then okay. So I'm like, okay. And so I began to keep it that way. But then it was like, go look through your stuff, girl. Go look through your stuff. Look at what you done marked up. And I'm like, oh, snap. And I realized what Yahuwah said. I was like, you ain't never lied to me. You ain't never lied to me. And I began to realize that and I went through pulled out my books, and I realized that my book was highlighted up. And every time there was a new moon, the Sabbath for that new moon phase, it fell like right on that same day. So if the new moon fell on a Wednesday, the Sabbaths also for that moon cycle fell on a Wednesday. So we can see here that the previous moon cycle, the April's moon cycle, it fell on a Monday, right? And so all the Sabbaths fell here. And then, but you will also notice, like, y'all, if you ain't been paying attention, just kind of start watching. It's pretty fun to kind of keep up and keep track, right? So the last Sabbath of the last Sabbath of the month, or the last week in the month, you will have, and although some people say the new moon is a Sabbath, I get that. And some people celebrate it like a Sabbath, but it's the new moon feast. But what would happen if the new moon was actually a Sabbath, every month at the last week of the month, you would have 2 Sabbaths in a week, and that can't be. Because the Sabbath, and I went through and I saw it, I was like, yeah, I get it. I said, they off on that a little bit. I said, because there's never 2 Sabbaths in a week unless there's a feast. And it's still, well, okay, well, it's look, even with Passover and the first day of unleavened bread, Passover is not a Sabbath, right? It's the day, it's always the day before the Sabbath. The first day of unleavened bread is a Sabbath. And the last day of it is a Sabbath. The only time we see that happening is in the 7th month on the 10th day, which is the Day of Atonement, right? Because that's the only time out the year where you will see 2 Sabbaths in 1 week, right? So that's atonement. But let me hurry up because I know y'all gotta get to work. Gotta go work, go to work. This recorded. You come back and watch this later. But the new moon is not a real Sabbath day. But if you work for yourself and you can take it off, you run your business, you run your city, hey, take it off if you want to. But they normally just threw a feast on this day. So the new moon, you find the moon, you throw the new moon feast, right? So every month you'll go through and you will see that the Sabbath, and this sometimes it's like back to back. It just depends on that moon cycle. Sometimes it's a day apart, sometimes it's 2 days apart. So this is April coming into May based on the Gregorian calendar, right? So the last Sabbath would have been, well, it was yesterday, which was the 10th of May. So now we got this day, and then this is kind of pre-calculated, right? But we're still watching it, and y'all know that if y'all was here a couple months ago when I went through and I did all my pre-calculation days in here, I realized I still got to watch because 1 month was kind of off, right? So technology is good, but we still got to watch. If we just constantly just rely on technology all the time without constantly checking, sometimes we'll get off because technology is the same thing. What you put in is what you get out. And if there's a human error input, it's going to come out somewhere. But if you're not still watching while you're following this, you're not going to catch your error, right? Clearly, which what happened a couple months ago. And it wasn't just me. A lot of people that have gone back and realized this, everybody did it because they'll pull up an app and they're watching like, oh, yeah, like, no, it didn't show. And we went to verify, we're checking different places, nobody saw it. And everybody was like, well, we didn't see it, it wasn't here. Was everybody now become lazy and following the app to see everybody? Everybody got a wake-up call all the way across the world that was completely relying on technology, right? So I think that was good because it wakes us back up. Okay, that's just like becoming lazy and listening to somebody else teach you all the time and you not going back to check. So go back, check me. Go back, check your favorite teacher, everybody. You need to know for yourself so you can own the information and put it to good use and so it can become active in your life, right? So, but, so yeah, so that's what happens. So we'll be watching for the new moon. And once we see if it shows here, like I said, I know I pre-calculate, but I'm still be watching because if it shows tonight, then we need to call it here. We need to change this, and then the Sabbath is going to be on Tuesdays instead of Wednesday. But if it falls like we pre-calculated, then the new moon will fall here. Tomorrow will fall here, and then the Sabbath days will fall on Wednesday for this new moon cycle. Now, what you will see people do, because you have people that's like, okay, well, we're scattered to the 4 corners of the earth, and we need to be doing it on Jerusalem's time. But Yahuwah said you follow it wherever you are on the earth. Good morning, Uncle JB. But what you will realize is, when we spotted here in the Americas, they spotted there. We talked about this is a little bit last moon cycle, because there was a lot of people asking about it. What happened is, yeah, you fight here's the rub. Here's where you're gonna get off. If we're here, if we're living in the Americas, excuse me, and we want to keep it on Jerusalem's time, because you gotta remember, Jerusalem, they're depending on where you are, they're like up to 12 hours ahead of you. So like they're about to go into tomorrow over there. Like we're on the today is the 11th for us, but they are about to go into the 12th. So it's about to be Wednesday over there in a few short hours. Now, when we spot the new moon, they also spot it. It's not multiple moons. Like, we ain't gonna see a moon over here and they gonna see a moon over there. We're all gonna spot it at the same time, but they're gonna spot it in their time zone and we're gonna spot it in our time zone. But as we look at it, it's all gonna line up appropriately. So that's why Yahuwah said you celebrate it wherever you are. If you are in America and you're celebrating it on Jerusalem's time, oh, it's the 12th. By the time we get to the 12th, I'm sorry, if they spot it and they say it's the 13th, because when we spot it on the 12th, it's already going to be the 13th there. So that's why the date is different. If you ever go back and you begin to look up the data, you will always see that Jerusalem, they will spot it after. It's all the time, almost like a day after we spot it here in Americas and other places, right? So it's like, okay, well, we're doing it on Jerusalem's time, but you don't live in that land. If we spot it on the 12th, and they spotted on the 13th early in the morning, we spotted it over an evening over here, and okay, we'll do it on the 13th. By the time we get to the 13th, it's already the 14th there, and you're wrong. You are wrong. You have missed the date by waiting to that date where they spotted it to observe it, right? Same thing with the Sabbath. If you wait to do it on the date the day after, you are celebrating the Sabbath on an unholy day now, right? Because you waited for their time zone. By the time we get to their time zone, they're no longer celebrating it. So that's why I try and make clear to people, okay, if you live in Jerusalem, keep it on that time. But if you live here, keep it on our time, because what's going to happen is if we keep it in our time zone and they keep it in their time zone, we will be celebrating it together at the same time. And as we're celebrating and they're celebrating and you waiting for this date to celebrate on the day they celebrate, we didn't all move to the next day. And now you celebrating on an unholy day, right? Y'all got to pay attention to those small details. And that time zone is what trip people up. And they don't get it like, oh, well, we celebrate. I'm like, yep, y'all wrong. But I ain't going to fight with people. I'm like, Father, open their eyes so they can see this. They're not taking into consideration the time zones. Like, you live in America. All right, y'all, I'm done. We got to get out of here. I love y'all. I'll see y'all in the morning, 7:15 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Peace.